Today we're going to start off with the demand for money. Okay. Demand for money. Or basically, in places, they're not going to be calling it demand for money. Basically, what they're going to be calling it is the liquidity preference curve. Basically, this is what they're going to be calling the demand for money curve. So the first thing about this you need to know is demand for money. Obviously, who demands money? Anybody who wants to buy goods and services or do transactions or investments वगैरह. तो इसके अंदर जब हमारी पहली बात आती है, we talk about the three motives of why people demand money. ठीक है? Our first motive is basically called the transactionary motive. ये जो transactionary motive होता है, ये basically people, अगर मैं, if I talk about people, then people use money to pay for goods and services, to pay for household servants, to pay for interest, whatever, घर की groceries वगैरह. Businesses keeps it for paying their labor, paying cost of raw material, interest payments वगैरह. ठीक है? The way the transactionally money works is that no matter what happens to the interest rate, whether the interest rate is at R0 or the interest rate is high, makes no difference because people will demand this money because they have certain things to do with it. I call it DT for T for transaction. And what it is saying is that interest rate kam ho ya zyada ho, people will hold this amount of cash in hand. It's a straight, perfectly inelastic line telling us that basically the transactionary motive is perfectly inelastic, that's for sure, perfectly inelastic. And perfectly inelastically basically means that it is completely insensitive to interest rate. Whether the interest rate comes down or whether the interest rate goes up makes no difference. Interest rate will be whole. 20,000 rupees, $20,000 or whatever the amount is, that's what people are going to demand. ये तो हो गया पहला motive. The second motive that we have is called the precautionary motive. Now, this is the money people keep for emergencies. Now, a person at home would keep this money just in case any home appliance breaks down or maybe some medical emergency comes about. And firms would keep it, there's a breakdown in the machines and you need to replace it, you need to fix it. So the thing is, this money is basically for emergency purpose that we keep. And the way iska jo demand curve banega is going to be highly inelastic. I call it demand precautionary motive. And if you see here with the changing interest rates, like for example, if the interest rate was R0, you were keeping about say 10, but when the interest rate went up, you decided to reduce your holding just a little bit, okay? Because you feel $2 million, $22,000 could have been used for something else. So ये जो precautionary होता है, it is highly inelastic, okay? and it is relatively sensitive. Again, अभी भी है insensitive to the interest rate, but not as insensitive to this. With this, I would say it's like highly insensitive, or over here, I will say it's just insensitive. Now, ये दोनों जो होते हैं, transactionary and precautionary, ये दोनों active balances में आते हैं. Active balance का मतलब that this money is actively being used for a particular purpose. Okay, so the purpose is for transactions and precautions just in case for a rainy day or something like that. ठीक हो गया? ये दो हो गए. And interest rate से insensitive हो गए. Once you're done with this, then you have some idle balance left in hand, जिसको हम speculative या asset motive कहते हैं. Now remember, most of the things that you need money for is done. Now you have this extra cash in your bank, which is sometimes there in the bank, but sometimes it's there as financial assets, sometimes it's there as properties also for some people. So that is the money that is moving around. It just depends on कहाँ पे risk ज़्यादा है, कहाँ risk कम है. When some things have high risk and the return does not match that risk, people sell that stuff and keep cash in hand, because cash in hand is not going anywhere. Yeah, with inflation it might lose value, that's for sure. लेकिन जैसे कोई stock है, IT stock है, right now they're flourishing, they're doing really good. But once the COVID is over and let's say things are not that IT based anymore and the stock's coming crashing down, one might think that, you know what, that time is coming almost, right? When the stock prices, which are highly inflated, might come down. So यहाँ पे जो reward है, that's not matching the risk. A person, what can they do? They can sell it at high rate right now and keep cash in hand. Okay, so this money is for investment purpose. It's not for this or this. The way it usually works is sort of like this. This is actually from the Keynesian view. We're going to talk about this asset motive a little more. But let's suppose that if I have it like this over here, what this is telling me is that if the interest rates are low, people tend to keep relatively more cash in hand. Let's say, I'll call it 20. But if interest rate is high, people tend to keep lesser in hand. We have to talk a little more about this in terms of the connection between interest rates and bonds. वैसे तो interest rates और bond prices, let's talk about bond prices का relationship with it. Interest rate और bond की price का एक inverse relationship है. If one goes up, the other one goes down. Now there's a reason for it. ठीक है? The reason is government issue करती है एक bond जिसकी एक face value है $1,000, let's say. And यहाँ लिखा है कि ये तुमको 10% annual offer कर रहा है. That means every year you're going to make $100 on it. ठीक है? When this bond was first time issued, the government got $1,000, and in a year time you're going to get 10%. Now depending इसका tenure कितना है, but that's how the bonds work. Once it is sold in the market and the government got its 1,000, now whoever is holding this can go into the secondary market and they can sell this bond. For how much? Not for 1,000. The value is going to fluctuate. So the value is dependent on market में interest rate क्या चल रहा है. For example, you have this bond which is promising you 10%. In the market, the interest rate for any person who wants to invest his money now, market is offering 8%. ये market का rate है 8%. Now, if I have $1,000, I have two options. I can go and try to buy this one, or I can invest in the market for 8%. ठीक है? I will definitely try to go for this one. But the thing is, whoever owns this also understands that this bond is giving 2% extra. So in that case, whoever has this, the bond, he is going to ask for a premium. This bond is for more than $1,000. That's for sure, because I have no other option. The option is 8% in the market. I can go and invest that. ठीक है? So अगर interest rate कम है, the bond prices are going to go up as a result of that. लेकिन अगर market के अंदर interest rate was 12% and I have $1,000 to give, why would I buy something which gives me lesser percentage as compared to what I can invest for in the market? I can invest for 12%. Now, whoever is selling this is sort of like in a desperation that he's probably going to be willing to give up. और उसको हम बोलते हैं that this is going to be selling at a discount. The bond price is less than $1,000, that's for sure. तो ये जो market का interest rate है और इसकी जो expectations हैं, that affects, will people hold cash or will they go for financial assets? So for example, what this curve is doing is, what is this curve showing? Try and understand this. The interest rate is, let's say it's high, it's on the high side, okay? The interest rate is on the high side. So that means the bond prices are quite low right now. Okay, I'll write it here. Bond price is low. Now the thing is, I have to think, will the interest rate go down or is there a possibility for it to go up, further up? I have to expect this because अगर ये मेरा पैसा speculation के लिए है, investment के लिए है, returns के लिए है, so naturally whether I hold cash or whether I invest has to do with what is going to happen to this price. Will it go up? Will it go down? तो इसके लिए usually people are thinking, हाँ जी, next जो monetary policy committee की जो meeting आने वाली है, उस meeting के अंदर will this interest rate go down or up? Because that's going to determine what's going to happen to this bond price. Usually when the interest rate is on the higher side, people expect that the interest rates are going to fall down. Expectation for the interest rate to fall. And if that happens, what's going to happen to the bond price? Well, the bond price will rise. This may happen. What should I do right now? This point, holding very few cash, very little cash, is telling me that a person is going to expect the interest rate to go down and the bond prices to rise. So he's going to buy bonds and keep very little cash in hand. Remember, this is demand for money for speculative reasons. So you're holding very little cash. That means you're holding more financial assets. So over here, we are recommending buy bonds. Sometimes interest rate goes up, bond prices और गिर जाती है. बंदा कहता है अब इससे ज़्यादा ऊपर तो नहीं जा सकता interest rate. Let's buy more, a little bit more, ताकि बाद के अंदर जब वो interest rates जो है वो नीचे जाएगा और bond prices ऊपर जाएंगी, we're going to sell and make a good amount of money from it. On the other hand, अगर interest rate is right there, rock bottom on a very low side, जैसे पाकिस्तान में इस वक्त है, interest rate is 7% or so. We've had a discussion in previous classes. ये काफी low interest rate है पाकिस्तान के लिए. For a very long time, Pakistan never had such a low interest rate. और अगर कोई मीटिंग आती है तो nobody is saying कि interest rate और नीचे जा सकता है. Everyone is expecting interest rate ऊपर जाएगा because it has gone too low. And if the interest rate is too low, that means the bond prices are really high. And if the expectation is the interest rate is going to rise, what should you do? Because what's going to happen is that the bond prices are going to fall. So what should be my recommendation? Sell bonds. Hold cash. That's what you need to do, and that's what people are doing. If interest rate goes even further down, bond prices will be even high. More reason for people to sell it and increase. देखो interest rate इतना नीचे चला गया है that right now, if you see on the later side, for every drop, people are selling more and more of these bonds and holding cash. ये curve holding cash represent करता है. So we said this is how people think. Okay? This is how actually Keynesians think. Monetarists have a slightly different viewpoint compared to this. But what we need to know over here is what I've explained to you is there are अगर कोई भी demand curve भी या कोई भी ऐसे आ जाता है on the liquidity preference curve, you have to explain this, the transactionary motive, okay, and why is it insensitive to the interest rate? Even facts, what can make it to shift? Why would people want to hold more cash in hand? Maybe inflation, that because of rising inflation, people have to hold more cash. Maybe it could be because of the fact that the economic confidence is low and people feel that, you know what, our expenses are going to go up and we got to hold more cash. So people are holding more cash in hand. There could be various reasons. Same precautionary, why would people hold more cash? Because of economic certainty, because of inflation, some amount of paise is not going to be enough. You need to hold a little more cash for precautionary purposes. And then when you add these two, you get active balance, and this is called an idle balance. This is for your speculative reasons. So you should be able to explain all three of them, and after that, you add them up. Add them up how? वो जो हमारा तरीका है ना horizontal summation का, you use that. वो horizontal summation का method क्या होता है? कि RO के interest rate पे, I don't have space to make it anywhere over here, but this is how you're going to make it. Let me make it on the side of the upper side over here, which is your end result of this. Basically, I'm going to add them all up. The quantity of money, interest rate. So basically, RO के interest rate पे transactionary is 20, precautionary is 10, so that's about 30 का active balance, and यहाँ पे another 20, so that's about 50. और फिर R1 के ऊपर it's still 28 plus 5, so R1 के ऊपर 28 plus 5 will be 33. But the point is, it's going to keep the shape. I'll call it the LPC, the LP curve, and that's your basically an answer for 12th mark. Lekin I personally prefer to talk about this ये मैंने Keynesian's view से बनाया है. There's no harm in it. You can work with it. It's perfectly fine. This is ये LP curve की जो explanation है. This is how it works over here. Exactly इसी point से the whole thing. This you can write for the LP curve also. क्योंकि basically इन दोनों की वजह से तो कोई shape खास पता नहीं लग रहा. This is the curve which is really making the shape of the LP curve. Okay. This is the key thing over here. और उसका रीजन ये है because of the speculator. So eventually this will even like go a lot more straighter over here और यहाँ पे भी a lot more straighter over here. We're going to talk about that a little later. Any questions on this? Abbreviation liquidity preference curve. I wrote it up here. Okay, liquidity preference curve. Any questions on this before I move on to speculative के जो दो और जो monetarist और उनके views में जो difference है, and because we need to speak about those also. All right, let me go talk about that then. There's no marker. All right, anyhow, I'll just erase this. So basically speculative के अंदर और Keynesians के हिसाब से फर्क है. ये Keynesians का व्यू है. I've already spoken about this. Let me make a comparison of this to is there in if you want to find कि ये कहाँ पर है, you won't find this in majority of the books, but Google Drive के अंदर e-books के अंदर जो Sloman की है, you can take a look at it over there, and you will find this discussion what I'm doing. From the monetarist point of view, उनका जो खास speculative का shape है, that is like that. As compared to this, is a big difference. The difference is because they have differences in opinion in the way, if you look over here, यहाँ पे क्या है? It's highly inelastic and elastic and unstable. Over here, it's inelastic and a lot more stable interest rate के साथ. If you look here, interest rate में जब changes हो रहे हैं, whether interest rate goes up or interest rate goes down, you don't see much of a fluctuation in people holding cash. And that's weird because usually what we say is, let me explain it through this way. जब किसी फाइनेंशियल एसेट की इंटरेस्ट रेट नीचे जाता है, जब इंटरेस्ट रेट्स मार्केट में नीचे जाता है, तो दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ लाइक सिग्निफाइज कि रिस्कीनेस बढ़ रही है, because you're getting lesser in return for something. If you're investing in something, you're getting lower interest rates. So when you're getting lower interest rate in something and something is becoming riskier and it's not worth it, what are you going to do? You're going to sell it and you're going to get cash in hand and you want to hold more cash. And that's what we should be doing. लेकिन यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा एक differences in opinion. Let me talk about it once more. Let's suppose interest rate was RO and यहाँ पे interest rate falls down. ये थोड़ा सा केन्जियन का है, स्पेक्युलेटिव का व्यू. First thing what the monetarists are saying is that money and financial assets are not close substitutes. Money and financial assets are not close substitutes. That means if something goes wrong, you cannot move. If interest rate goes down, you cannot easily, whenever you want, move the money to financial assets or financial assets to money. It's not so easy. According to Keynesians, money and financial assets are easily substitutable. Now let me explain why is this such an important thing. इंटरेस्ट रेट्स R0 से जब गिर के R1 पे गया और फिर जब R1 से गिर के लेट्स से R2 पे जाता है, we don't see cash holding changing so much. It's changing by the same proportion. Whereas यहाँ पे if you see, जब आप R0 से R1 पे जाते हो तो कैश होल्डिंग में कोई खास चेंज नहीं आया, लेकिन जैसे ही आप R2 पे जाते हो, there is a big shift, not shift, but a great movement towards holding more cash. So we're saying, why are the Keynesians thinking that way? Well, it's mainly because we're assuming that they are easily substitutable. जब interest rate यहाँ से यहाँ गया, cash पे तो देखो कुछ return नहीं मिलेगा तुमको. तो अगर जब interest rate यहाँ से यहाँ गया and you are at acceptable risk levels, why not get this much interest rate also? Because you know, if it gets more risky, you can easily switch. तो यहाँ पे आपने कैश होल्डिंग कोई खास बढ़ाई नहीं है, ऊपर की लेवल्स पे तो और आप कम मूवमेंट कर रहे हो, because you're saying let's just earn जितना भी इंटरेस्ट मिल रहा है. But once it goes really low and to a risky level, people quickly convert the bonds into cash holding. यहाँ पर interest rate is going down and it has gone really down, फिर भी cash holding नहीं हो रही है. Why are people not going towards more and more towards cash? The thing is because monetarists also feel that physical assets are preferable than cash. तो अकॉर्डिंग टू मॉनेटरिस्ट व्हाट दे आर सेइंग इज कि लोग इंटरेस्ट रेट कम होने की वजह से फाइनेंशियल एसेट्स बेच तो रहे हैं लेकिन कैश होल्डिंग नहीं बढ़ा रहे, फिजिकल एसेट्स की तरफ मूव कर रहे हैं, मे बी गोल्ड प्रॉपर्टी और समथिंग लाइक दैट. दे डोंट वांट टू होल्ड कैश व्हाटएवर रीजन, बिकॉज़ एक तो मॉनेटरिस्ट इन्फ्लेशन से भी बहुत ज्यादा देखते हैं कि मनी सप्लाई और उसका जो है इन्फ्लेशन का इम्पैक्ट भी बहुत ज्यादा होता है. According to them, physical assets का कोई सीन नहीं है. We'll say are too illiquid. Physical assets are too illiquid. You don't switch to that. You prefer cash holding. Now, from exam purpose, I think work with the Keynesian one, this one. But for added information, it's there in the notes and all. I have made the distinction between these two. And again, अब देखो questions पे depends करता है. If the question is purely 12 mark का LP curve explain करो, we talk about transactionary with diagram, precautionary with diagram, assets ये वाला with diagram, और फिर ऐड कर दो इन सबको. ठीक है? If you feel that's not enough, have your discussions. It's not going to take much time, but it might impress the examiner. लेकिन अगर क्वेश्चन है इंटरेस्ट रेट कैसे डिटरमिन होता है, तो उसमें तुमको मनी सप्लाई को भी बताना है पूरा, उसमें तुमको डिमांड फॉर मनी के भी 3 मोटिव्स बताने हैं, और फिर इंटरेस्ट रेट कैसे सेट होता है ये भी बताना है, ठीक है, विच आई जस्ट डू राइट नाउ कि इंटरेस्ट रेट कैसे सेट होता है, बट फर्स्ट दिस इज हाउ द डिमांड फॉर मनी कम्स अबाउट, एंड दैट्स योर डिस्कशन.